everybody. My name is Keely Spring. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California. And this is my podcast where I interview fellow clinicians about the work they do. And to that end, today I have with me Justin, and I'm looking forward, Justin and I are just meeting each other, so I'm looking forward to hearing more about the work that he does. To that end, Justin, would you mind introducing yourself, your niche, kind of what populations you work with, and maybe where you're located? Might be helpful.
Lovely. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Justin Carotti, Carotti, if you want to spell it out. I am a licensed clinical social worker, licensed alcohol and drug counselor, and founder of Valiance Counseling and Coaching.
Mhm.
We are a private practice, group practice based in Milford, Connecticut. So we have been in Milford for the last 5 years. This November will have been 5 years. My formal training was as a therapist in juvenile probation and then in schools here locally in the Northeast. I went to school. I got my graduate degree at UConn, so let's start with that. Did a lot of my training and work here in Connecticut, and so from juvenile probation to public and private schools to then outpatient work. I recently left a position at more like a startup agency in December of 2024 and came on full time at Valiance. And so Valiance's primary focus, I think, our mission really is to be the standard of care for the intersection between where mental health and mental performance meet. For us, we're a big believer in having highly trained and competent clinicians with a performance pedigree. So both myself and everyone who works at Valiance has some sort of high performance background, either athletically or professionally or as a coach of some kind. I had a lot of athletic stuff in my history. So soccer was my primary sport, but I've also been a pretty high performing CrossFit athlete and coach. I've coached youth soccer and have built in coaching as a part of my work for a really long time. It's something I'm really interested in and something that fulfills me. So I felt as though we could create a practice that really marketed itself as both counseling and coaching, hence the name. You had asked who is our target audience. So we tend to see as young as middle school age to adults. So there's no real upper bound, but a lot of our work is focused on supporting young people and professionals through periods of transition in their life. So there's that element of coaching that comes into that as we think about, how do you build a life of meaning and purpose? So I'm sure we'll get into maybe more details as to the practice, but that's the story.
And just so the audience might be aware, what are some challenges that somebody who is a high performer might be, you know, engaging with or struggling with or needing support around?
Well, yeah, interestingly, high performers don't get a ton of sympathy, because a lot of times their outward facing life looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Uh, Tends to correlate with financial success, tends to correlate a lot with, relational success, at least outwardly facing again. And there's a lot of rewards and accolades, right? And so what I think ends up happening is that there is sort of all underneath the surface. I think a lot of high performers struggle with feeling good enough. There's a lot of, and by the way, I'm including myself in this bucket. So a lot of what I say is also in reference to stuff that I've worked on and continue to work on, but overcoming this fear, it's like a weird ambient fear of inadequacy that you can't really put your finger on, but feel like you need to continue to move forward, that there's like this scoreboard of life and that you must win. There's a level of insatiability around ambition. There's a lot of pressure. It can be internalized pressure, meaning, like high standards that you feel like you need to continue to uphold, or externalized pressure. A lot of high performers end up in environments where they feel comfortable putting themselves around other high performers. So there's a higher standard there. And so a lot of the work we do as a practice is making room for those discussions. We're not downplaying the reality of that. We're actually sort of recognizing that as high performers ourselves and just sort of talking more about how do we adapt flexibly to those situations, building a more three-dimensional perspective on, I wouldn't say coping, but it's like sort of handling it and and building in balance in one's life. So uh, those would be the major themes I think high performers struggle with, though.
I like that you bring up the
Watching
invisible.
your sip of tea there. Sorry,
Sorry.
bad
I've
time.
got a little cold for anybody who's listening or watching, so a little bit of tea to help the throat. Uh, I like that you bring up the little invisibility there because I do think that that is I work with driven professionals. That's kind of kind of this outward perspective of everybody thinks you're doing good. Everybody, is kind of like, what are you talking about? You're top of your game, you're at the top of the company, whatever. But the reality is there's things that are going on internally and the drive to get there and that it does become an invisible, I think,
Well, no
struggle.
one has any sympathy for a CEO,
Right.
right? Or a C-suite executive. I mean, we see athletes who are performing at a high level at high school, college, and then pros.
Hmm.
Like it's not as evident, right? It's if you think about the stereotype of someone who's depressed, it doesn't come cloaked in money and accolades and professional, appearances, right? You have this stereotype of a person who's sheltered and quiet and in a dark room, but I think, mood as a general psychological principle doesn't care, right?
Right.
You, as a human being, everyone struggles, including myself, with moments of anxiety, moments of depression, moments of uncertainty, moments of lack of clarity, apprehension, resistance. These are all things that happen, and we're frankly making space for the relational aspect here too. Everyone exists within an environment, and so even if you're extremely competent at work or in your professional modality, let's say sports, as an athlete, you have to come back home, and sometimes your relationships at home aren't great, and so you have to make space for those kind of conversations as well. So yeah, I think there's a degree of invisibility, but also I think there's I don't know if you see this, but it seems to me like there's just a reluctance to even broach the topic sometimes, because if you think about high performers, a lot of what's gotten them to that high performance landscape
Hmm.
is an unabashed reliance on self,
Hmm. Hmm.
pushing, challenging. And so when it comes time to speak to someone about where it is that you're stuck,
Yeah.
it's not a muscle that's often flexed.
Yes.
So it's just, in a way, I keep saying making space, but I would say affirming that as like a part of the work. It's like allowing that to be a part of the work.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. I agree 100% there. Um, so maybe before we kind of dive in a little bit more to the clinical work, could you maybe share with the audience? You did a little bit in your intro, but why did you decide to become a clinician? Why go down this path?
I think the origin story started for me really early on, where just predisposition towards being like a listener and an observer. It was always easier for me to sit back and kind of like take things in. And I've always been more interested in the softer sciences, the the psychologies, anthropologies, social sciences. These things have always been more interesting to me. Um, Dating back to middle school, I did a lot of work in HIV/AIDS education prevention. In high school, I would teach middle schoolers, and in middle school, I would be involved in sort of volunteer work in that way. So I was always kind of in this social worky realm early. And so when I went to undergraduate school at University of North Carolina, Wilmington, I had no idea what I was wanting to do, but I just explored the things I was interested in. And I guess the answer to your question, I think, truthfully, has to do with the people in my life that have led me to not only feel supported, but people that I've idolized or modeled myself after. I've had the fortune of being around professors like at UNC Wilmington, or guidance counselors who went out of their way to help me while I was in high school, or professionals well after that in my professional career have gone out of their way to support me, that have always, I think, modeled for me what a unique, privileged opportunity we have as clinicians to have access to a person's life that no one else would have. That is a privilege that I take very seriously, um, that I don't take for granted, and that I feel a tremendous amount of responsibility in holding and supporting and working through. Part of our values at Valiance is we believe in the value of hospitality. And I think hospitality to me means anticipating people's needs and understanding people individually and showing up for them in ways that make them feel and experience a level of uniqueness. You know, it's like everyone's motivations and perspectives are unique. And so that's been part of what keeps me going. And it's part of the brilliance of this work is you have access in this way that I just don't think other people would have.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that as a value. I think that's such a welcoming, warm value.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. I think that's the right word. Those are the kinds of ways that we try to define it. One of the things that inspires me are premier experiences that make you feel at home.
Mm,
Going out to a five-star restaurant or going out to a five-star hotel, and it's the small things that matter. You know, it's the moments where you get a free appetizer homemade by the chef prior to sitting down without you needing to order it. It's the time where the maitre d' takes your jacket off without you asking.
mhm,
It's the time you check into the hotel and there's a handwritten note on your pillow. It's like these things to me is an ode towards seeing these people as human and
mhm.
making them feel comfortable in this experience. And I think if you put on the spectrum over here, medical,
Sure.
hospital setting,
Yeah.
there's a degree of need for that. But where we want to fit in is making this an experience that sets the standard, right? Like wherever people go from us, we should be the standard bearer for how they measure a good clinical experience. If they have many clinicians after us who are extremely competent, we want to be setting the standard that they're measuring that experience against us.
Yeah. Love it. Absolutely love it. So what do you like or enjoy about the work that you do?
It was funny when you asked that previous question. I remember someone telling me that if you do this kind of work, you have to really enjoy butts and seats. You just have to enjoy, people just sitting down chatting, right? And obviously, that's not really what we're doing, but genuinely, like every single day, I'm speaking to people, kind of like this conversation, right? And so it's inherently social. It's inherently um, people orientated. And so, what do I enjoy about the work beyond what I described in terms of like the mission driven stuff that really inspires us as an organization and inspires me as a professional and the degree of responsibility I feel towards the profession in that way? It keeps you on your toes. I mean, I just think about meeting people. Like, okay, in the last week, I've met new people. I've had new experiences. People that I've known for a really long time have called me. I had a conversation with someone who I've known for 5 years in my practice, call me on a Tuesday with a unique scenario that they've never had before.
Mm,
And so there's degrees that can challenge a clinician in terms of being boundaried, but I love the idea that not only do we have access to people in very unique ways, but we have access to humans, like as a concept. Everyone's perspective and way of living and challenges is so unique. And so it really does keep me on my toes, and it challenges me and I think the staff to remain creative in not only continuing to attend to those challenges, but really, show up for people individually.
yeah. Yeah. I agree. You just never know what's going to kind of walk in your door as a clinician. And to your point, I do think we do get a lot of, which I personally am happy to navigate when a friend calls me or something and says, "Hey, Keely, we're having an issue here. Where do you think I should do?" Or like where would be the best way to go for support? Or we do kind of hold that space for people in our lives as well as those we work with.
Yeah, and in my practice, we've had clients be on our caseload for literally 5 years. Like I've known some people for their entire high school career into their college career. And so I've seen them be 17 and
Mhm.
I can see them be 21. And so the challenges that they deal with can be variable. There's obviously threads of similarity in certain cases, but that kind of stuff is pretty unique. And by the way, it goes two ways. They've known me, right?
Yes.
I had a daughter in July of this year, and so they now know me as a dad.
Yeah.
And so like this is an incredibly personal work. It's
Yeah.
not to say that
Yeah.
I'm overtly communicating all my personal stuff, but
Yeah.
they know me on a personal level. If you've known me and seen me on a weekly basis for a really long time, or known our staff, you know what kind of how we go about talking and how we go about living as well. So um, the ability to share that space with another person is really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my oldest client that I've had is 14 years since I was interning. And so I would say, yeah, she definitely knows a lot more about me just because she's she's
Totally.
seen the
How cool
journey
is
of,
that?
yeah, it's
It's us.
great. It's
It's
great.
so cool, and you can be uh, real,
Yeah.
right? There's a level of like, look, we're living life together in real time. I talked to you about this idea of like, hey, look, I'm one of these guys, right? I'm a high performer. I own a business.
Yeah.
I manage and operate people
Yeah.
all day long. I meet new things. I take on new opportunities. So it's like, yeah, I'm in the trenches. Like this stuff applies to me as well.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, so switching gears kind of a little bit more to the clinical kind of way in which you kind of practice or work, are there certain modalities or, techniques that you kind of pull from more than others?
Yep. So I was formally trained at a graduate school, very fortunate to have been trained in multidimensional family therapy as my initial entryway into clinical work. What that allowed, so if you envision a world where people were being arrested as juveniles and then being asked to go to this residential facility, but only for a period of time, the state of Connecticut was wanting to lower recidivism. So in order to do that, we had to really involve families. And so I loved learning MDFT. It was incredibly hard. My 21-year-old self would have literally not said that at all. I hated it at the time,
Sure.
but retrospectively, it taught me a great deal about systems work, the
Mm.
importance of involving and getting comfortable with family members.
Mhm.
And so I've parlayed that into work today. Like I think that if I'm working with a high schooler, the family is incredibly integral into how they are functioning, how they see the world, and how they're being impacted at home. So our team is very adept at involving families
Mhm.
based on my experience in MDFT. Not probably not surprisingly, I've also got really good at motivational interviewing as a result of working with juvenile probation. So a lot of resistance, a lot of oppositionality, some conduct disorder,
Mhm.
a lot of substance use.
Mhm.
And so we have to work within the confines of a population that doesn't want to do any of this.
Yeah.
And motivational interviewing becomes really central as a part of that. Later in my career, especially now, doing more mental performance work and coaching with athletes, I
Mhm.
think acceptance and commitment therapy is massive. Um, I think it's a little bit of a cop out. If you talk to therapists, almost every one of them says CBT, but I do think, cognitive behavioral therapy is kind of central in sort of understanding this work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say those are really the basis of a lot of how we go about our work. I had mentioned to you before, I think just this idea of that coaching side of things being behavioral. So there's always this element from that CBT perspective of how do we make the work tangible and applicable to like their day in, day out kind of actions. ACT has that too with committed actions that they can take. So we'll do some of that work, and those are the kinds of modalities that I enjoy.
Yeah. I think to that end, some of what you're talking about, there's different uses for like a CBT. Like I agree with you. I think CBT is really good around, I do leadership coaching as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very good around goal setting and kind of behaviors and thoughts that are getting in your way, that are problematic, but there's limitations to that. Um, that said, one of the things that you mentioned that hasn't come up too much in this podcast is motivational interviewing. Would you mind speaking a little bit to that modality in particular and why that is useful and kind of what it is in
Mm-hmm.
general?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're pulling on my professorial knowledge here, but I believe the inventor, if you will, was Bill Miller. The idea behind this was intended to work with those who struggle with substance use disorder primarily. So the idea, so it's kind of overlapping with the trans theoretical stages of change. So you have to have in one hand motivational interviewing and in the other hand stages of change. So for those who are not clinicians, there's this concept that anytime you want to make behavioral change, you exist on a spectrum of ambivalence.
Yeah.
And so if we remove substance use and just let's say the example I always gave my students, because I've taught at the graduate level, is this trend of ice baths as it applies to me.
Yeah.
So I don't like ice baths. I don't like getting cold, but I know that it's good for me. Right. And so you could provide me reasons to do this, but I don't want to do it. Right. So on the stages of change for Justin and ice baths,
Mhm.
I'm at a pre-contemplative state of change. I'm not even thinking about wanting to do this. Right.
Sure.
And so the idea being is that as a person fluctuates on that stages of change, motivational interviewing can also be helpful in just helping a person build in changed language is what it's called. So you want to actually try to increase ambivalence a little bit if you want a person to move from pre-contemplative to contemplative or contemplative to preparation. There's five of these. Um, and motivation interviewing has a lot to do centrally with this non-judgmental stance on change. So it's counterintuitive. The language makes it seem like I'm going to motivate you, but in fact, it's not that at all. It's much more of a question, paraphrasing, summarization. So if you and I were working together, I might ask you an open-ended question around the things that you care about and how that juxtaposes with your current actions, and then just try to make sense of that.
Yeah.
And so we take the current situation and we measure where it is that that person wants to go, and we figure out the discrepancy. It has a lot to do with discrepancy building.
Yeah.
Um, and in that will be things like paraphrasing. So, it sounds like you're saying this. It seems to me like you're saying this. Is this something that's really important to you based on what you're telling me here? How do you make that make sense? And as we communicate, what we're just doing is we're asking the person to think more deeply about what they feel pretty entrenched on. I'm not doing this. Justin's not doing ice baths.
Yeah.
Well, Justin, I know you're pretty big into high performance. How does that fit with this idea of maybe recovery for you? Oh,
Hmm.
like I really haven't thought about that, right? And so it's not, you're not telling me to do something. You're just making me think more critically.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I appreciate you sharing that overview because I think that's helpful. This is a total oversimplification of motivational interviewing, but I always think everybody's motivated towards something, and it's
Mm-hmm.
figuring out what they're motivated towards, and to your point, what that discrepancy is between what they're motivated for, and it could be something very, very small to start to get momentum,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
As-
then very importantly to your point, Keely, here is that going back to the idea of working with families, it's not too atypical for parents to have the desire that their child has a motivation that they don't have,
Sure,
right? And so you have this discrepancy between I want my kid doing X, but kid is doing Y, and now we have to square that circle.
for sure.
And there's a degree to which we have to actually interpret their behavior as being motivated towards something. Oftentimes for teenagers, it's like a motivation towards autonomy. So
Hmm.
their resistance is actually a way in which they can assert their authority over their situation, right? If everything's being controlled for them and if they say no to something, it's actually their opportunity to be autonomous. And from a professional standpoint, for people like you and I who also do leadership coaching or working with people who are in sort of positions of power and influence, it's the same idea. It's like they might be doing something that seems counterintuitive, but their motivations are maybe more embedded psychologically than we really fully appreciate, or that their staff can appreciate.
For
So
sure.
it's like just kind of grounding us in that, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And very important to your point, I think, like non-judgmentally. Like I don't have skin in the game.
Yeah.
If you want to go X or Y, I want
Yeah.
to make sure it lines up with what you care about.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's about your goals. It's not about my goals for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just like a parent, they may have their goals for their kids, and those might be valid and necessary, and they have more pieces of the puzzle of life and all that kind of stuff.
Totally.
And it might not be what the kid is motivated towards or
Mm-hmm.
their goals.
And both can be true. We got to make space for both. So in the work, it's just like listening intently, right? It's like I don't have an agenda here. I just want to make sure we understand where we're going.
Right. Yeah. Well, so to that end, Justin, what would a typical session look like, or is there a typical session? I mean, you're pulling from a lot of different things, so I'm imagining there's definitely some organic nature to the work that you're doing, but could you kind of walk people through like what does a session kind of look like or feel like in general?
Well, those who have listened, you probably already understand stylistically how I talk and how I approach things, and maybe how it might feel to be with me in the room. But I think to answer this question, it's probably easiest to maybe bucket some of these categories. So in one category, Valiance does extraordinarily well with high performers, as I mentioned.
Mhm.
And then in another category, I don't really like this terminology, but we'll just say failure to launch. So,
Ah,
there's a population that's mildly to moderately motivated to change, but is struggling to do so. And then there's a population that wants a ton of change and just wants to be coached through it.
sure.
And those two populations require two different tacks. Then
Mhm.
across that, to make it more complicated, there's ages and stages of development in one's life. I'm a brand new dad. I'm a different kind of person than I was 6 months ago, right? And so we have to take into consideration, developmental life cycle of where a person might be. But to speak about what it might feel like for a teenager to be in session is going to be very different than a college student, very different than a post-college kind of person. 80% of the clients that we work with happen to be male. So that's also a factor. I think generally speaking, I'll walk you through sequentially. Everyone gets an intake. In that intake, we're conceptualizing the challenges, understanding the goals. This is not too dissimilar to literally any therapist that you meet with.
Mhm.
But just as you understand the conceptualization of the case, the way we would go about this is to start really by identifying symptoms we can alleviate. I think if we can build rapport by making a difference immediately, and I always pitch it as like, see us for 4 to 6 weeks and then let us know how we're doing.
Mhm.
So if we can start to build rapport across that period of time by alleviating some symptoms, meaning like, what are a few pain points that are popping up for you that we can be pretty directive around?
Mhm.
And then we can start to peel back the layers of the onion clinically. So I give you a kind of an archetype of a kid, 21-year-old, completely stuck, failed out of college, doesn't have a job, lives at home, parents are involved, parents are concerned. Okay, I'll probably start with just working with the 21-year-old because he's referred to me by his mom. We understand the kind of work that we're doing has a lot to do with career stuff. So we're going to do values inventory. We're probably going to do a little bit of a version of Myers-Briggs. We're going to probably look at what he's done, evaluating behavior as he goes. Where is he getting stuck? Okay, we'll do maybe a resume build out, all this stuff that's really tangible, tactical.
Mhm.
But then, beneath the surface, oh, there's some challenges at home. Okay, probably need to bring mom in. Oh,
Mhm.
there's some challenges related to relationships or challenges related to substances. And then we'll need to bring in those kinds of lenses, right? And we treat, it's not just mood, right? It's OCD. We'll treat some like substance use disorders, as I mentioned before. So we have to be adept at understanding the full picture. And just because a person might be coming in with a primary complaint, okay, this is the thing I want to focus on. I want to make sure that I can navigate college successfully. Or, oh my God, I just failed college. I got to like do a college rehabilitation program. Okay, cool. But like maybe there's underlying ADHD that's preventing you from being able to actually do this effectively. We need to onboard a new way of thinking, not
Mhm.
just like try to square peg a round hole and put you back into college.
Right.
Um, so simply put, I think it's balancing the psychological underpinnings that allow us to conceptualize the case clinically,
Mhm.
while also taking into consideration action-based tools that allow that client to walk away feeling like that hour was well spent.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I love it. There's definitely you're really kind of tailoring it to who's in the room with you and what their challenges might be.
Yeah, I think you have to. I don't know how much your audience is therapists versus non-therapists, but for therapists, I think that's kind of like a given. Is you have to be navigating each relationship independently. Obviously, the strength that I have or clinicians have is the ability to think broadly about different techniques that we can do to
Right,
fold it
right,
in.
right.
But at the end of the day, I think we have to be, individually treating every situation differently.
Yeah. So this is kind of a side note. You mentioned that 80% of your clientele is men.
Mm.
I do work with a lot of males, but I find well, at least here in the Bay Area, most clinicians tend to be female. And I find that it is generally harder for me to keep uh, men in therapy for longer, or like what I think might be necessary or needed. And so I
Ah.
just wanted to ask you, since you're working with this population often, do you find that as a challenge, or this could just be I'm a female, you're a male. There could be some differences there in terms of, men feeling more comfortable speaking to another man kind of thing. So just wondering if you might, just kind of speak to that.
Yeah, I think it's a good observation. But my sense in just in our conversation as it's evolved is that the men that you might be seeing are more in that executive kind of like adult phase. And so for those men, that makes sense to me
Mhm.
conceptually.
Mhm.
Um, I'll tell you that the vast majority of men that I think our practice sees is 18 to 27.
Ah,
And the reason that they stick around is I mean, I'm going to say they kind of have to, but it's because of the stage of life that they're in. It's like not clean.
ah,
So 21 to 22 or 22 to 25, there's a lot of variability. I mean, anyone who's listening who remembers being 20 to 25, it's like you're in a weird, not even a midlife crisis, like a early stage of crisis because you've got a fully developed identity to a certain degree, but your brain's not quite there and you're just beginning literally everything. So even if you just graduated college, you don't really have a job. And if you have a job, you don't really love it and you're not getting paid a lot and you don't really, you're piecing it together in almost every domain. You're just
yeah,
starting off in relationships. You're just starting off being on your own.
yeah,
You're just starting off in your career. So I found that it has a lot to do with the developmental life cycle because if we're in a developmental life cycle that requires this sort of long, or I should say longitudinal relationship, then those guys are going to be with us. Now, to your point, that does not mean every week. And
ah,
maybe that's one of those things we can dispel while we're talking is
sure,
I think therapy gets this rap where, you're committed. You're like, oh, if I sign up for this thing, I can never get out of it.
yeah,
And I always say, I'm like, dude, I'm not your doctor. I'm not your probation officer. I'm not your parent. Like, I want you to see me as a consultant just as much as a clinician.
mm,
You can reach out to me when you need me. Our bare minimum frequency at Valiance is once per month, but we can be
ah,
bending and flexing towards what it is that we feel like is needed. We were
sure,
talking about this offline, but the summertime is notoriously a slow time.
yeah,
And that's fine. If we have a couple phone calls throughout June, July, August, and then we pick back up for college students, that makes a ton of sense. So I've found that clients stick around, but we do need to be flexible with how often we're meeting and the ways in which we're meeting, phone calls, video calls, in-person chats. These things all matter.
yeah. Yeah, that definitely resonates. I think I see that. It's not the I guess what I was more saying is I don't see the like weekly cadence necessarily. I see more of us kind of every other week, once
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
check-ins,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
which is fine for me. I'm happy to meet anybody where they're at, so it doesn't really bother me, but it just
Yeah, and once you have that, I mean, so there's a few 30 somethings to 40 somethings on my caseload, but there's sort of this through line in the clinical presentation that just makes sense for us to have more connectivity. So, it tends to have a little bit more complexity from a relational standpoint. People in their 30s and 40s, it's not just about them. Usually they have families, they have partners. And so we'll do, couples counseling here and there, excuse me, one-on-one work that is sort of combined and connected to that work where we're, folding it in. So, um, yeah. And going back to that 4 to 6 week mark, it's going to be weekly to start because you don't know me.
yes,
And so, you don't know me, I don't know you. We need to develop rapport. And I don't know, 8 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, we still continue weekly. And
sure,
then we just sort of feel it out. I think, if we're doing our work well and we're setting the standard of care, we have goals and then we can navigate and adjust to those goals as long as our team can be transparent that these goals are completed or working towards and we're good and maybe we adjust those goals.
sure, yeah, yep. I practice very similar, so that definitely resonates.
Yeah, we're working in similar fields. I like it.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so are there things that still surprise you about the work that you do?
Yeah, of course. It's like, is there things that still surprise you about being human? Yes. Yeah, I mentioned to you like the randomness of clinical presentations sometimes, like you'll have a client you've seen forever call you with a unique experience.
Mhm.
These things I think can catch you off guard or have caught me off guard. It's not to say that I'm caught off guard in a bad way, just like I didn't expect it. So, sort of surprised in that way. I still find it somewhat interesting that themes are always there. I got to imagine that if I was like a podiatrist, I'd kind of get tired of looking at feet. Like it's like, oh, here's just another. foot problem, you know?
Sure,
And
sure.
as a clinician, I'm like, oh, here's just another one of those scenarios of X,
Yeah,
right? Because I think, look, there are very much archetypes. If you've done this long enough, I've been doing it over a decade, that you kind of see these things play out, and it's sort of interesting. It's like a surprise in a weird way because it's
yeah.
not a surprise,
Right, right,
but
right.
it's like it doesn't matter. A 14-year-old still struggling kind of similarly with the 14-year-olds that were struggling the same way 5 years ago.
Yeah, totally.
Um, and then just generally like the clinical presentations and man, like the complexity of people's lives, just you never know what's going on behind the scenes. You
Yeah,
never know. Um, I feel really, there's some times where I come out of session, I look at my wife and I'm like, man, I'm grateful to have what we have. Uh, I think we have it relatively simply. Um, and I feel really privileged to have that. But like some of the clients that I work for, I feel for them. They have been really through some tremendously difficult situations, and I admire the resilience. Like if you really want to see human perseverance and resilience, be a therapist. You'll get direct access to that.
for sure. So, are there things that you wish you knew or understood, or people knew or understood about therapy? You kind of spoke to this a little bit when you just what you just said, but that there's themes and that there's, kind of patterns, but are there specific things that you think you wish people knew or understood?
Yeah, I would say let's take that question and split it. Let's say for therapists and then for clients. So for clients, I wish that people realize that this is not, look, I actually want to say that it can be a very scary proposition to do something like this for the first time. It's like walking into the gym for the first time can be incredibly hard. But if you're working with someone who's worth their salt, who I think many therapists are, this is like their life's work. And so we're not out to get you. We're not out to, psychoanalyze you. We're genuinely drawn towards helping people on a broad scale. That tends to be the case. And so we're going to listen, you're going to feel heard and understood. And so I want to destigmatize this whole idea, especially for men, that you have to kind of go in there and like spill your guts and like come out like a puddle. And it's like,
Yeah.
man, I just think you have this like Freudian sit on a couch kind of image in your mind. And
Hmm.
at least at Valiance, it's just like not that. We're going to be strategic. We're going to be tangible. We're going to be tactical. We're going to be behavioral. You're going to have shit to do. Like it's not always that, but it can be that.
Yeah.
And there's goals. Again, there's a degree of directedness that I think we take. That admittedly, not every therapist takes, but that's what we do. So that would be for clients. And then for therapists, man, I wish people would tell you how to build a business. I wish people would talk about
Yes.
that. It's something that I'm very passionate about. I've done presentations with my graduate students on it. I'll continue to be a resource to clinicians who want to do this work. Happy to be a consultant in that way. It's really, really something that I think is underrepresented is A, you can charge money for your work, and B, how do you do that?
Right. Right.
So those kinds of things, I think people who are becoming therapists, I wish they taught that more.
Yeah, it is actually the thing that they don't teach, and I think that's led to a lot of these like what big box companies and things being able to kind of come in and undercut our value in some ways, right?
That's an excellent take. That's an excellent take. That's so true. That's
Yeah.
so true. There's a lack of there's a gap in the market that these bigger companies took advantage of, right?
Yes.
They realized that all these therapists are graduating from graduate programs. The way I frame it, and man, I've been on the inside, so I know what it's like. Graduate programs do an amazing job onboarding you to a way of thinking,
Yeah.
but it's a little bit about a lot,
Yeah.
and it's really really rare that you come out and like one thing really really well.
Yeah.
And of course, if you had to prioritize learning a model versus learning business, you're going to give the clinicians the tools that they need to be able to do the work. If you want to be
Sure.
a plumber, you need to know how to use a wrench before you build a business. But I do think en masse, to your point, there's this macro movement that's just sort of taking advantage of therapists.
Uh-huh.
And that's like not good. so we need to work with therapists and recognizing that their work is extraordinarily important. You can build a cash practice, you can get paid, and you can deliver high value and make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So final question in this clinical area, is there a tool that we could share with the audience that is accessible that people could use or kind of think about um, on their own?
Yeah. Okay. Well, the not so fun tool would be to Google the trans-theoretical stages of change that we referenced, um,
Fair. Right.
because
Yeah.
that one's easily Googleable, and you can find like anytime you feel stuck, you
Mhm.
can just ask yourself where on the stages of change I am. I have personal experiences where I'm like trying to get people to do things, and I'm like, oh wait, you can't do that, right? Like people don't change just because you want them to.
Yeah.
So you have to understand it. So that's like the not so fun tool. I would say adjacent to maybe what you're asking is I have a weekly newsletter
Oh,
that I put together concepts of high performance and mental health that I'd be happy to share with the audience. Comes
please.
out every Monday at 5:30 in the morning. It's a 3-minute read. It's sort of a deep dive, as good of a deep dive as I can in 3 minutes on high performance and mental health to make it really actionable. So happy to share that with the audience. It's called 1% Better.
1% better. I love it. We'll definitely put that on here too so people can see it and access it.
Cool. Thank you.
So thank you, Justin. That's the clinical questions.
Yeah, yeah. That was fun. That was good.
So, Justin, are you ready to take the being seen questionnaire and be seen a little here?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I'm interested to see what you have up your sleeve here. This is good.
Fair, fair. All right. So, first question is, what is something that's making you happy right now?
My daughter.
Oh, love it. You said she was born in June or July?
Yeah, she was born July 5th.
Nice.
She's turning 4 months in November, if I did my
Oh,
math right there.
nice.
So um, I don't know, man. It's her first Halloween. This is being recorded on Halloween. You know how
Yeah.
epic that is? That's amazing, right? She's about to have her first Halloween. She's about to have her first Thanksgiving, first holiday period. It's
Yeah.
gonna be awesome.
What's her costume for Halloween?
She's a skeleton, and my mom knitted her a pumpkin hat. So
Oh,
she's got a nice like homemade hat. We'll be up in like my wife's family does this Halloween. They have a great Halloween street, so we'll be up there tonight, and she'll enjoy it. But yeah, I mean, it's just incredible. It's like a light of my life right now. It's super fun.
love it. Love it. Yeah, 4 months is really too where they start to become really interactive and smiling and
Oh,
oh.
dude, we were dancing this morning. It was awesome. It was awesome.
Love it. Okay, what is your favorite app?
Oh. All right, so I keep giving you like more answers than you probably want. The one I use the most that I probably shouldn't is Instagram, but it's
Okay.
definitely not my favorite. This is like low key. My favorite app is Waze because I would
Oh,
be absolutely lost without that freaking thing. I mean, I remember the days of MapQuest, and there's probably people who are older than me who had to do things even differently than that. But yeah, Waze is probably my most used. I wear a Whoop strap, which is a wearable for HRV and general fitness, and I find that app is really cool too.
nice. Nice. Yeah. All good apps. The Waze app, when your daughter gets a little bit older, my nephew, I will tell you, recorded directions in my sister's Waze. And so it's his young voice being like, uh, closure up ahead, watch
Come
out.
on, I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
So
maybe it's my favorite
something
app
for
that I've
future.
underutilized apparently. This is incredible. Oh my god, I can't wait to do that. That's awesome.
It's great. Every time I hear it, I'm like, oh, it's so
That's
great.
amazing. That's adorable.
Um, okay, beach or mountains?
Beach, 100%.
Uh-huh.
I went to the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, my senior year. I lived on the beach. My
Nice,
family had a house in the Outer Banks, North Carolina, when I was growing up.
nice.
Beach, 100%. It's awesome. I will say, as I get older, I find that I would enjoy any respite from talking to people all the day, every day. But
Fair.
I'm cool. I would say priority is beach for sure.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, what is one thing that movies never get right?
The movies. Well, movie is a big category.
It is.
Their trailers. Their trailers are always the same. I think the only trailer that really caught me was Inception.
Uh,
But
mhm.
I think movies just generally like never get their trailers right. I'm like I want to like kind of I want someone to mix it up. I want
Fair.
someone to give me a trailer that's a little bit different. Um, as a storyline, it's tough though. That's a really hard question. I don't know how else to answer that.
Fair. I think the trailers is a good point. What drives me nuts about trailers these days is they tell you everything. They like go
Exactly.
through the whole movie.
Exactly.
Like, why do I need to watch the movie?
I
I know.
was just flipping through on Netflix this morning, and I'm like, every single one of these trailers is not enjoyable to me right
Yeah,
now. I used to go to the movies and you'd be like excited for the trailers.
sure.
Like you, and I don't know why, maybe it's just I'm older and grumpier, but uh, trailers I think need work.
Fair. Yep, I agree. Okay, what's the best way to relax for you?
Well, this is a good question for high performers. Someone just asked me this the other day. We were talking about it, and like instinctually, I'd be like working out, right? But it's like that's not really relaxing, right? So I would say right now for me, I find that I do have a sauna, so I use the sauna. That is actually really
Mhm.
relaxing for me.
Ah,
I like a lot just going for walks with we have a dog with my daughter. Like if I have a dad, my wife just went back to work, so a couple of days this past week I was out there, and it's just me and her and the dog out in nature, and that's inherently very relaxing. She doesn't talk, she's usually sleeping, and my dog doesn't talk. There's a theme here. I do a lot of talking and a lot of listening. So if I get a chance to be in silence in nature, it's like very, very nice.
yep. Yeah, I can resonate with that. So, what about a dream trip location? Is there somewhere you'd like to go?
Oh yeah, for sure. So Japan, New Zealand, Australia are all on my list.
Nice.
I would settle for Italy every year,
Uh,
but I've been there. So I think on the list of places I've never been and really want to go, Japan, New Zealand, Australia.
nice, nice. All that kind of other side of the Pacific there.
100%. I mean, crazy different world, places I've never been. I think amazing scenery, incredible food. I'm a big, big believer in travel. I've traveled for a really long time. My wife and I make it a point to travel, but we've never made it out that far, and that's on our list.
Nice, nice. Love it. Okay, what advice would you give your younger self?
Yeah, that's always a good question. I would say uh, trust the evolution will happen.
Hmm. Mhm. Yeah,
So it's like a level of patience and just honestly, it's trust though. It's not just patience. You have to. I wish that I just knew that it was going to be all right.
yeah, yeah. Kind of like that idea of trusting the process of growing up, of developing.
Yeah, it's not easy. Like when it's really bad, it's bad.
Yeah.
Um, and you don't realize. I mentioned this story on another podcast, but when you write your autobiography or you write your biography or you read a biography, they talk about people's lives in like periods of decades,
Hmm.
right? And so like, when you're in a 6 month hole, it's brutal in that 6 months. But if you put it on a 10-year time horizon, it's like a blip.
Yeah.
But when you're 22 and you're going through it and you just broke up with a girlfriend or you just didn't make enough money or just didn't have a good job or you're unsure of yourself and the direction you're headed, it feels so visceral, like you'll never get out of it. Almost like when you're in high school and you can't make friends.
Yeah.
It's like really, really visceral. So I I don't look forward to that part as a parent. I think it's going to be hard, but I just remember what it's like,
Hmm. Yeah.
and I want to be able to trust that. I wanted to trust that, and I want to trust my kids. They'll do the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Lovely. Okay, out of the four seasons, which one's your favorite?
Yeah, fall,
Mm.
fall. I would say uh, September is an amazing month. My wife's birthday is in September. It's still warm. I live in Connecticut, right? So it's still warm. But it's like it's shorts and sweatshirt warm, which
Uh,
I'm a big fan of. Uh, it's like the turn of the season, but you're not in it yet, which I guess is literally the definition of fall. But I'm specifically referencing September. Um, I just really like that part of the year.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of what we're in right now.
Yeah, we're getting it. By the way, kid, we're getting close to me not liking it. It's like getting cold over here. So that's why I say like September, you got me. Yeah, October, you kind of got me. But talk to me in November, I feel a little bit differently.
Yeah. Do you get snow where you are?
Oh yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah. Not as much as we used to, but yeah, we'll get a decent amount for sure.
Okay. Okay. So we got three more questions here. First
I
one.
love it. I love all these. This is good. Did you create all these?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Love it. Keep going.
Thank you. What would be the worst superhero power to have?
To have access to everyone's thinking anytime you wanted.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would suck.
Yep. Number
Uh,
one answer from all clinicians I've interviewed.
really?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's been a handful of other ones like the Hulk or things that would also not be great. Uh,
Yeah.
and mind reading or having access to people's thoughts is
Yeah,
number.
mind reading would be so brutal, so brutal. You don't want that. If you think you want that, you don't want that. Look no further than the fact that just imagine if you just had access to like one other person's thoughts. It's
Yeah,
like you wouldn't want that.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay, what is an animal that resonates for you?
Oh, everyone calls me a bear. Like
Oh,
if we've talked about like in my friend group, like, oh, what's your spirit animal or whatever.
hmm
Um, so my knee jerk is bear.
hmm
Um, they call me the sun bear if they like a little bit embarrassing, but so yeah, I would say bear. Just
hmm
courageous, but also like loyal and kind of like aggressive if he needs to be,
hmm
or they need to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
love it. All right. Okay, so final question. When you look back at your life, what do you hope you'll be able to say about it?
One thing that I really want to be able to say is that I lived it fully with a sense of purpose, and then I wasn't scared to do the things that I wanted to do in life. I've
Mhm.
thought a lot about this, and I have a vision of me like looking around at my great grandchildren and just feeling like I did everything I wanted to do while I was here.
Mhm.
Um, and for me, I think the back portion of my life will have a lot to do with that in reference to family. So I'm looking forward. I'm not rushing it,
Yeah,
but I'm looking forward to it.
fair, fair. Well, thank you, Justin. You're officially seen.
Thank you so much. That was good. That was very, very. I appreciate the breadth of those questions. I felt like we covered a lot of territory, so I appreciate you.
For sure, for sure. Thank you. For anybody listening or watching, I will include Justin's information and ways to reach out. To that end, Justin, I know we talked about a number of different things. I felt like we
Yeah, yeah.
did some good deep dives on some things. Is there anything that we didn't discuss, or we'll put up the information about your newsletter and those kinds of things, but is there anything else that we haven't discussed that you'd like the audience to be aware of?
No, just check us out on our website, valiancecounseling.com. Obviously, you'll link that. I think if you're interested in following me or getting connected with me, I'm always happy to have conversations. So, best way to do that would be via LinkedIn.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just want to send a message out there to anyone who's interested in seeking therapy to do it, to make that courageous step. Um, I think you'll find that you'll be better for having made that experience happen than not. And anyone who's wanting to become a therapist, that you have a job for life. So you're just navigating this in a way that makes sense for you, but believe that you can carve out your own niche. It's totally possible.
Yeah, love it. Well, thanks again, Justin. Appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. It was lovely to chat.